Hey guys, it's me, Seren, back with another video. So this is going to be a review video on a movie called Burning Sands, which recently went up on Netflix, and it's getting just a lot of buzz ever since it went up. Oh, damn, I hit the table, sorry. And I was invited to like a watch party. A bunch of people got together to watch it, and I was on Twitter talking about how I was watching it, and a lot of you guys wanted a review video. So I'm not going to get too in depth into the plot because I don't want to spoil it. And there are some twists in the plot, but I'm going to give you guys like kind of like a little quick like breakdown, and then kind of get into some of the things that I thought about it and some of the questions that were raised for me that I thought were really, really interesting and pertinent. Basically, it's about a group of line brothers at a fictional school, a fictional HBCU, historically black college university, called Frederick Douglass University, that are pledging a fake Greek line. So there are 9 Black Greek organizations in the U.S., the Divine Nine, which I'm sure we've all heard of some of them, AKAs, Alpha Kappa Alpha, Delta Sigma Theta, which is deltas, Omega Psi Phi, which is Qs. So it's basically about, it's at, again, like this imaginary school with this imaginary fraternity, and it follows this like group of 5 line brothers as they go through Hell Week, which is the very last week before you basically cross and you become a member of the fraternity. And then the movie's called Burning Sands because it's known as Crossing the Burning Sands. And the movie focuses on hazing practices, but it's not just a movie about hazing. It's also kind of this, they go a lot into just like why people even want, like various reasons why people want to cross, because all of the different, so the main character, there's one main character who's this guy named Zurich, and you kind of just like see all this, so there's 5, it's him and his 4 line brothers. So one of them is his friend, but then like over the course of the movie, they all basically become, they become friends, because the whole idea is you have your line, your line brothers, and you cross with them and you do everything with them and you go through this experience with them. And it's meant to kind of like forge this bond between, and it's the same thing with sororities, between you and your sisters. So it's interesting because the movie kind of goes into all the different reasons why they're all there. Like one of them, his father and his grandfather were in the fraternity, which makes him a legacy. So he's like trying. So in some fraternities and sororities, if you have family members and especially close family members that are in, you automatically get in. But the way it kind of plays out in this movie, they don't do that. So he kind of like has this desire to get in because it's like, everyone in my family, all the men in my family have joined this fraternity. Like, I have to get in. Like, I can't be like, the fucking outcast in the family. And then there's like another character that's like a nerd. Like the line brothers call him like Square. And there's like a part where he asks them like, do y'all even like know my name? Like, y'all just look at me as like a square, as like a nerd. But like once I get into this fraternity, like then I'm going to have my respect. So that's like part of why he's in it. Zurich is like he's like a pre-med student. And he wants kind of the, like, for example, he's like talking to a member of the fraternity that works like nearby in a hospital. He's like doing his residency there. And the guy is like, oh, I would like love to, write you this letter of recommendation after you cross, So Zurich wants, and what a lot of people want from these groups and these organizations is this, this camaraderie with upstanding members of the community and these connections and the ability, like, oh, you're I think the fake name is Thetas. I can't think of what the name of the fake fraternity is, but it's like, oh, I'm a Theta, you're a Theta, you're a doctor, I need this letter of recommendation, I can call you up, which is like known to be a huge draw of the Divine Nine, these Black organizations, because this is like a huge difference, I would say too, between like white Greek organizations and Black Greek organizations, is that a lot of like Black Greek organizations are about not just like this like college experience, but like being a part of this group, this organization after you get out of college, and kind of like I want to say like, I don't want to say being born. I'm like thinking of like being like, once you cross the burning sands, you're kind of like reborn into this like, into this network, into this family, into this, you know, it's all about, they say repeatedly in the movie, you know, our organization is about leadership, it's about brotherhood, it's about charity, it's about community service, it's about, you know, making the world a better place. And that's generally the point of these Divine Nine organizations is to help Black youth, and then later on Black adults, find this community, find this camaraderie, get this bearing, especially if you want to go on to be in the professional world. You know, you have this community. So, however, how do you get into this community? You know, and for various reasons, people want to get into these Greek organizations. Again, some people want for their respect, some people are legacy, some people want to be a part of something bigger. They want to be a part of this group, this collective, this community. They want to be able to, you know, to feel that camaraderie and to be able to have access to that power and those connections. It is a form of nepotism that Black people have kind of created amongst ourselves, because obviously we are not part of like white nepotism, you know, like the mainstream, you know, a lot of white people have it. So, oh, my father plays golf with your father and your father's the CEO of the company. So we're going to have you over and we're going to have a handshake and I'm going to get offered a job. Black people don't have that. But if you're a part of this organization, you know, that like Martin Luther King was like a Kappa, I believe, and like Rosa Parks, I think, is like an AKA, you know, like you get into these organizations and that's like your form of like nepotism. But like something also that the movie examines, which I also want to say that I felt like the movie, there's some people saying that they feel like this movie is like fucked up because they feel like it's like unfairly like lampooning Black Greek organizations and like especially the Divine Nine, like because the process of crossing the burning sands is supposed to be a secret. It's supposed to be discreet. So a lot of people, and a lot of people feel like the hazing is like worth it to like get to the other side, to get into these groups for like all these reasons. And it's meant to build character. It's meant to test your resolve. It's meant for you to show how much you want to be a part of this organization that is going to benefit you so much later on in life. So a lot of people kind of feel like this movie's in bad taste. But I don't think that the movie's in bad taste because I don't really think that it unfairly, because it's not, it doesn't, what I got from the movie was not, I don't think that the message of the movie is that like Greek organizations are bad, the Divine Nine is bad, Black Greek life is bad, we need to like shut down, like no, I don't think that. I think that the movie really is a meditation on a rite of passage to me, because basically we're talking about a rite of passage, like things that you do to join a collective. And that's not just Greek organizations, right? Like, and that's not just a Black people thing. That's not a Black Greek thing. That happens in white Greek organizations. That happens in the army. The term Hell Week, the phrase Hell Week, you have to go through hell to get to the other side, comes from the military. You know, you could even say gangs, gang culture. And I think that there were football, sports, and I think that there were some really strong comparisons and allusions made to gang culture and also sport culture, because there are two scenes in the movie where, because a lot of the times when you're online, you have to like wear certain things. So there's like one scene where they're like all out in the woods and they have like all black on, like black sweatshirts and like black sweatpants. And they're like going through this ritual. And then the like cops show up, 2 white cops show up, and it's like all Black men. It's like the 5 line brothers plus like 2 or 3 of like the big brothers that are already in the fraternity. And these 2 white cops show up and ask them, what are they doing? And like one of the guys like pulls out a football and they like throw the football around, and they're like, oh, you know, we're on the football team. We're just practicing for the next big game. You know, this just like, and then there's like later on something else happens, and they, again, this is like a different scenario where they have the all Black on, and somebody asks them like, oh, are you in a gang? Like, is somebody hurt? Did somebody get shot? Because these are like 5 like Black men like in, you know, in these clothes. So there are like allusions made to like groups, collectives, and what do we do to get into these groups? What do we do to get into these collectives? You know, like you have to go through a rite of passage to get into a fraternity. You have to go through a rite of passage to get onto a sports team. You have to go through a rite of passage to get into a gang. You have to go through a rite of passage to get into the army. To get into all these collective groups, you have to go through these rite of passages. And a lot of times that does include hazing. That does include physical and psychological, torture, beatings, this idea that you have to be broken down to be built up. And to me, watching the movie, I thought that was like a huge question of what is the point of hazing in any situation, not just in, Black Greek organizations. Like, of course, this movie specifically focused on Black, Greek organizations, but it's kind of like, what is the point of hazing? What does it do to forge, the bonds of brother or sisterhood, and getting even deeper into that, what I really started thinking about was this idea of building relationships through trauma. That's a really common idea in our, collective as human beings, and especially, as Americans, is that we forge bonds through trauma. We build relationships through trauma. What is the power of pain as a way to build a bond? We're going to all go through this painful experience together, be it again college sports hazing, Greek hazing, the hazing and the psychological torture of joining the army, that we're going to go through this. We're going to go rob a house and beat up a bunch of people to like join this gang. We're going to go through this painful experience together, and that is going to build a bond between us. Something that I think is interesting about that, though, when you start talking about Black people specifically, is the idea of intergenerational trauma. The idea of trauma that's been handed down, especially through slavery, because for a lot of us, we have heard in our lives, well, I went through it and I was fine, so you're going to go through it and you're going to be all right too. I didn't grow up with no this, and this, and I was fine, so you don't need it too, and a lot of that goes back to, again, Joy DeGruy, who I talk about all the time on this channel, and her idea of post-traumatic slave syndrome, and that we have these relationships, we as Black people have these relationships with trauma, we have these relationships with pain, and we continue to hand them down because it was done to us, and there's this idea of we have to. We've formed these attachments almost to pain and to trauma. And so we just continue to kind of perpetuate that instead of asking ourselves the question of why do we form relationships through trauma as opposed to something else? What are other ways that we could form relationships? What are other ways that we can join collectives? What does it mean to be a part of a collective? Does it mean trauma? Does it have to mean trauma? Does it have to mean we've experienced, we've gone through painful experiences? And hazing is illegal. Hazing has been outlawed. So it's pretty much gone underground. And I also think there's a question of how much hazing, how much pain, how much trauma is acceptable. Beating somebody, paddling somebody, which we've all heard of, and that is not just a Black Greek thing either. Again, that is also a white Greek thing. You can watch Animal House and they're paddling, So it's is eating dog food acceptable, but paddling is not acceptable? Is enacting the physical violence on somebody else crossing the line? Is having somebody, walk behind their big brother carrying their books acceptable? Because I kind of understand the concept of, you have to prove that you want to be in this organization. Not just anybody can get into our organization because of so many of the perks that come along with being in this organization later on. Again, the prestige of being a part of our collective, the network of being able to access all these doctors and lawyers and, all these people that are in our collective. And again, the prestige of being part of an organization that garnishes this respect, again, that serves, that's supposed to be a charitable organization, a philanthropic organization, leadership, respect, charity, they make them there's scenes in the movie where they make them recite, what are the ideals of our organization? Leadership, charity, respect. But then you also have on the flip side, but you guys are hazing the shit out of people. So it's how does even that fall in these ideals of respect and charity? When you're hazing people, you're not treating them with respect. You're not treating them with charity. So there's also some I guess that you could say that's almost dissonance. There's this idea on the one hand of we are this respectable organization that we do so much for the community, but to get into our organization and to be seen as respectable, you have to allow us to treat you in a way that does, in a disrespectful manner, right? It's like a flip. You have to allow us to teach you discipline through trauma for you to get into our prestigious organization, which is really interesting. And then we were also having a conversation on Twitter where people were talking about, somebody said, I want to watch that movie, but I find Greek organizations to be creepy because of the elitism, the classism, the idea. And that's even played around with a little bit in the movie as well. Because the main character, Zurich, he has a girlfriend, but he's kind of having this little flirtation with this girl that's in the, she's in the sorority that's like the sister group, the fake sorority that's in the sister group to their fake fraternity or whatever. So, there's a scene where they're like at a party and they're like dancing and he goes to like touch her or something and she says something like, no, like hands off, like you're not Greek yet, like this idea of like we're up here and you down here and you can't touch this until you're Greek, like no, so there is an element of elitism, of classism, of, that talented 10th, that idea of like, we are the talented 10th of Black people. And it's our job to be the best and to pull up, the poor ignorant niggas along with us, which y'all know I'm like very anti-elitism, anti-classism, anti all that shit. And I definitely think that also plays a role in, the severity of some of the hazing, because it's kind of like, again, this idea of like, well, I went through it to become better than you. And so now if you want to kind of like get up to my level and reach this pinnacle, you have to go through it too. And if you can't fucking go through it, if you can't go through what I went through, then you don't deserve to be where I am. And you don't deserve to have access to, again, this network, and you don't deserve to be affiliated with this prestigious organization, even if we have to take it to the extreme in the way that we haze you. So I thought it was really excellent. I thought it touched on a lot of topics. It played around with a lot of different ideas. It raised a lot of really, really important questions on, again, forging these bonds and building relationships through trauma. And again, the power of pain and painful situations as a way to build a bond. And I know there've been like scientific and sociological studies on that, and people talk about all the time, Stockholm syndrome and bonding with your captor, and because you're going through this traumatic experience and like your brain just like bonds you to that person. But it's like, how do we form relationships without trauma? That's kind of like the question. And I've been thinking about it for a few days. And I don't have an answer, really. Like, part of me wants to say we can, as opposed to, because, like, I don't know, like, I don't mind the idea, I guess, of, like, hazing in theory, which is probably, like, politically incorrect to say, but the idea of you have to go through a process to show that you really want it, to be part of an organization, is not inherently bad. Just like you have to go through an admissions process to get into a school or to get into a fellowship program, or, that's not like an inherently bad idea to just show the caliber of the work you can do, or show like how badly you want to be a part of something. But like, I think that once it starts crossing into like physical harm and violence and degradation, but like, I don't really see like the harm in like, oh, making people carry your books and, stuff like that. I think that can be harmless. And I still think that type of stuff can build bonds. And then I also think, again, the question of, how do we form, why do we form relationships through trauma as opposed to something else? How else can we form relationships? I think that relationships can also be forged through healing processes, through, because people are lazy. So even trying to get people to show up for things that are not like so like violent and negative, I think could still be, like, oh, we're going to like, a huge tenet of I'm just like spitballing here, but like a huge tenet of our fraternity is charity work. So for Hell Week, every single day, you have to like do some type of charity. So like we're gonna have like 6 hours of a car wash. We're gonna have like 6 hours of feeding the poor. We're gonna have like 6 hours of doing this, 6 hours of doing that, 6 hours of studying. So like every day, and if you like don't do it, then like no, you can't do it. You know, like, and there's gonna be people that's like, fuck that, I'm not fucking spending 6 hours around like dirty fucking homeless people and shit like that. So it is an interesting thing to think of. How do we form relationships without utilizing trauma? And again, especially because as African Americans, the idea of forging strength through trauma is, again, something that's just been handed down through the generations, going back to American chattel slavery and slavery throughout the diaspora. But again, that's not even, you know, that's something that is specific to us, but like the hazing and stuff is not specific to us. And that's in any group, this idea of like, you have to go through this fucking hard shit to come out the other side a better person. I mean, and it is true that fucking adversity builds character. That is true. You learn how strong you can be. You learn, because I've been through some adversity in my life. And I do believe that it has built character, and I have learned that I'm resourceful, and I have learned that I'm a stronger person. So I guess I wouldn't like go back and change it because it's made me the person that I am. But at the same time, you sometimes think like, damn, that was some hard shit. Like, did I have to go through that hard shit? So like, there's really no easy answers. There's really no easy answers, which I think is also the hallmark of a good movie, that it makes you kind of think in different ways and send your mind out in different ways. I mean, I definitely ended up probably with like more like existential questions than answers after watching this movie, but I will definitely recommend it. I think everyone should watch it. I think it's a very fair movie. Again, it's not like some type of unfair critique lambasting Black culture or Black Greek culture or Black college culture. If anything, I think it's kind of the opposite. It's really kind of this look into Black college culture and life, and what makes us kind of tick, and asks a lot of questions about just how do we feel about some things. And it definitely, for anyone that is in any of the Divine Nine, you know, wondering like, oh, am I going to feel like, you know, personally attacked or anything like that? Again, it doesn't like unfairly critique any of the organizations, and it shows a lot of the plus sides of being, like, there's one scene where they're all at this party, and the big brothers, you know, the ones that are already in the fraternity, they start to like stroll, and they start to like step in the party, and then like the sorority girls start doing like their accompaniment, and you can like see the five blind brothers that were following, they're like watching, and they like, and there's like no dialogue, but they're just like, ooh, like, I want to be a part of that. Like, I want to be a part of that. Like, I want to be a part of this group. Like, I want to be a part of this brotherhood. Like, I want to feel this camaraderie. And that's only human, to want to feel close to others, to want, you know, like we're animals. Like, we have a pack mentality, you know, to want to feel that camaraderie with others, and to be a part of this group, and to be a part of these traditions and these rituals that go back, you know, that is, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, there's nothing wrong with wanting to be a part of a collective. So I thought it was really, really good. I really, really enjoyed it. I'll probably watch it a few more times. Because like I said, it really just gave me like a lot of questions around trauma, around forging relationships through trauma, around what could be effective, other effective ways of forging bonds. Let me know what you guys think. I know a lot of you guys did watch it because you guys were tweeting me about it. If you haven't seen it, again, it's on Netflix, so please feel free to watch it. I will have some really good links in the description box. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Yeah, Burning Sands, I really enjoyed it. I definitely enjoyed it. I would totally recommend it. Please watch it. So, 2 thumbs way up for Burning Sands. Review, no spoilers. Food for thought as always. See you guys next time. Peace.